share this with my sister. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I think that the short answer to that, Johan, and is that we can vote for you to be the because it's your cash, the person with the authorized on the bank account. But secondly, in theory, you don't have to put the cash in until we're a bit further down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
until
what I thought.
We get something that's viable. I mean, what I don't want to do is to spend the next 2.5 months working my absolute balls off, and then you suddenly find that I've got a great thing, and
not enough money.
But then again, arguably there are a sufficient amount of people out there who are pure investors. They don't want to get involved. They want to do a JV with someone who's a ready. What did Boris say? A ready cooked Brexit deal or whatever he said. Someone with a project. So I'm quite chilled about that. And we just hold fire. I mean, the bank account's going to be set up anyway in the next week.
Okay.
Yeah. That comment, Johan, you said about difficulties opening a bank account.
Yes.
I've had that problem in the last week. But anyway, it looks like Yorkshire and Clydesdale, not my first choice, but anyway, they're happy to do an account, and we could do the dual signatory. So in other words, when a payment needs to be made, it can be agreed between either yourself, Elizabeth, and me, or Johan and me, or whatever. So that's basically, I mean, that's. I mean, I'm still going to have a chat with Suresh. Chris, the chap who said to me a week ago, I'm somewhere between 50 and 100. He's suddenly not taking my call, so he may have had a change of heart. So that leaves Oliver, the 65 buy-to-let chaps based in Cheshire. He's probably a bit keener. He's just bought a load of buy-to-lets, and he's just being swamped with paperwork at the moment. So I think I'll send him this recording, and then aim to have another chat with him perhaps tomorrow or the next day. Yeah.
Okay. So just to clarify, so you're gonna are you gonna register the company in initial stage in a private company, LTD, or is a?
I think the company's already registered.
Yeah, I've already registered the company, Johan.
Okay. Okay.
I'm at the moment, I'm the only shareholder, but of course that will change depending on whatever the mix is. That can be changed very quickly.
So basically it's gonna be a new issue of shares.
Yeah.
Then Elizabeth, us, and the others will subscribe. It will basically subscribe on pay share capital.
Yeah, I mean, once, absolutely, it's done.
Okay.
Basically, I retain 30% of the company. That's my fee, if you like. And there's 70% available out there. Now, realistically, we have to be slightly mindful of, let's say middle of February or whatever, we find a property which we really think is really great. We then, I was just thinking, actually, come to think of it, it may be that if we like a property, for us to really make it presentable to an investor, we will need to have sorted out the permissive development rights. They won't want to stick in loads of money on the vague chance that it's going to be tripped up by planning. So there may be a small cost, and you and I would have to, or me and the investors will have to talk about who's going to pay for that. I mean, we're not talking more than a couple of grand, basically, but we're talking an architect to map it all out, to form part of the planning that goes to the council. It should be rubber stamped, ideally. Otherwise, we haven't read this enough. So, but I think that's probably the best way ahead.
How does applying for planning in advance of actually purchasing a property work?
You basically go to a vendor, let's call him Bob, and say, look, I will buy your property, but I need to, I've got an option on this. Providing that it goes through, then I want to buy it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I think by January and February, the market will be with us. It will be a buyer's market. You don't want to be selling office space in February next year because nobody wants to buy it.
Got it.
So what we need to do is actually, in a way, string out the whole process. So we get someone to say, right, okay, I will do the deal. We'll do the deal at X, subject to planning, 56 days. In that time, we have a pre-approval comment from the local council. We say, look, are we going to run into difficulties here? No, it should be fine because you're doing X, Y, and Z. And it's all.
And at the same time, we will be going back to the people that you've spoken to already who've expressed an interest and confirmed and saying, right, here's our deadline. We need commitments by, or we'll be going to other sources of funding.
Yeah. And then basically, once we're getting closer to that mark, so we've got the finance in place, we're now in a situation that we then work on the builder. Now, one of the reasons why I haven't spent hours and hours and hours and hours on builders is you want a builder that's pretty close to where the thing's happening.
Yes, and that's available at the right time.
Precisely. So we then want to focus on the builder, right? Okay, let's say it's the 1st of May or whatever. We take possession of the property, the builder goes in then. And, you know, they work as quickly as possible to do the job in the, you know, whatever period of time. You know, you don't want long delays. Now, it's a bit easier if you've got a joint venture partner compared to commercial finance, which is going to be costing you $2.5 grand a month, and so on. So, although you actually, funnily enough, contrary to my P&L, you actually pay that out at the end, but I thought I'd put that in as a line going through each month. So that's where you want to be. You want to have the cash deployed for the shortest period of time. And then as soon as, well before we're anywhere near the end of the first project, want to be identifying other new projects. So literally, as soon as the monies hit the company bank account, we're then ready to act on the next project. So you get each project, if we were only doing one project after another, but each project down to about 9 months.
Yeah. In terms of financing, your initial idea of, okay, 250 from investors and we will borrow 250 at whatever rate.
Yeah.
If we end up getting 100 from investors and
300,
200
400
else, and
400.
How does that change the early stages of hang on. Sorry, I'm losing my thoughts. So,
remarkably,
in terms of actually negotiating buying something, you'll be negotiating with somebody to actually open up the "Are you happy to sell?" and what price and so on.
Yeah.
And so, what you propose is that you would probably be paying somebody a small amount as an option to buy.
Well,
while
That's
we
one
saw.
way. Yeah, that's one way to do it. You get that back off the eventual price,
Yeah.
by the way. But
Yeah.
that really just keeps them in the game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they could bugger off and go and try and sell it somewhere else.
Yeah. At what stage of the process would you anticipate us needing to have the financial agreements for enough to buy the property, and or enough to, or the financial agreements to have enough to do the refurb?
Just prior to us actually buying the place.
Yeah.
So we've got it all in place. We're ready to go. A bit like buying a house, a residential house. You don't say yes to someone if your bank or building society haven't said yes to you. So yeah, we've got to do all our due diligence. We've got to have the surveyor in there, making sure that there's nothing untoward, doing some fantastic plans that the council are just going to love, that they're not going to give any problems in terms of the 4 key things, which is whatever it is, acoustics, contamination, highways, and other things. And they're the only things that they can actually stop you if you're going down one of the permitted development routes, which is great. Because otherwise, historically, they used to just stick a spanner in the works. I'm on the local planning committee in my village.
So see how it works.
Well, absolutely. We get lots of stuff in. And, I'll be honest, we live in a lovely Cotswold village with lots of old buildings and so on. And, we reject quite a few buildings because they just don't look nice. Planners are their remit is to say no.
Yeah. So let me go back to the question from Elizabeth. So are you suggesting that what's the minimum price for the option to buy the property? So if you negotiate an option, you say, okay, I'm gonna buy this property, I want to sign an option that give me the right to buy the whole property in the next 6 months or 12 months. Suppose the option has a deadline. So if you don't complete the transaction after a certain period of time, you lose your option that you pay already. Is that right?
Yeah,
how it
absolutely.
works?
Yeah. If you paid an option, then you decide that actually you got the planning permission through, but for whatever reason you don't want to do it, then I'm afraid you lose your money, and that might be £2,000 or £3,000 or whatever. But ideally, you've got in principle the finance in place. You've done your due diligence about the fact that when we sell the place as 3 residential flats, it's going to achieve that price. You've got your margin of error and so on, and a margin of error in case the market dives and all that sort of stuff. So you cannot be as more prepared than you will be before you actually make the commitment. And more to the point, where we are at the moment, if we are with 100 grand, well, if we went down the commercial finance route, that's one route. It may be a question of just tying up with an experienced JV partner and saying, look, we're putting 100 grand into the project. That's 20%. We want you to put in the 400 grand. Now, obviously, the percentage, they're not going to be charging us a massive amount for the loan, but they're going to be wanting a lion's share of the profit after all. Yeah. That is one option.
By the way, I spoke to some potential JV partners, family offices, about this idea. But the guy said to me, Joan, we are a family office that are focused on sustainable investment. So the guy said to me, I need a property that the redevelopment has to be certified as a sustainable building. So the whole redevelopment have to be in a green property, energy efficient, energy consumption has to be complete, certified that is carbon footprint is lower. And by doing this, the guy will be interested in participating in a backing a management team with an idea and a portfolio to build a portfolio of properties and doing this business. It's the only restriction that the guy said to me. It's just that he's looking for renewable, sustainable buildings or solutions. Yeah. But I got potential JV partner that I've been in conversation for multiple other investment, no property, but other things. That's what I if I get involved, I will basically try to bring somebody with me, a potential JV.
I think, and we've spoken about this before, Johan. Realistically, yes, all the rules and regs are changing all the time, and they're all flats and regenerations, all more eco now. But I'd be lying if I said that the properties are intended to be the most eco. These are inner town flats, and they're not really aimed at the whole eco market.
Yeah,
I think we're going to need to be turning over the first projects more quickly than really trying to go for eco standards might necessarily allow. It had certainly occurred to me that depending on what kind of properties we find and what they need, it might be quite nice to be considering whether ground source heat pumps were appropriate, and of course to be thinking very carefully about the future proofing aspects of a conversion. But the bottom line, I think my impression in the first instance is that the opportunity to start the ball rolling will be something that we can turn around reasonably efficiently and quickly and say, what is the spec that will get this as a good conversion and be able to sell it on. But certainly I would love to see us paying attention to what can be done efficiently with reasonably green credentials, and learning about and really keeping an eye on what are the best technologies coming through, and figuring out what we can afford to use, and noticing things that are coming. So, for example, suppose we found ourselves with a property where actually we needed to redo the roof. Well, I'd be wanting to say, if we're redoing the roof anyway, can we please check, are there any solar tiles available yet? Are they affordable? Are they cost effective? How do we make a solar? And that sort of thing. I'd hate to be locking ourselves to, we will only do things if we can tick this box at the moment, because I think
I agree.
Finding its place.
Yeah. Normally a place with a dodgy roof has got a low price. That's called a distressed seller. We like distressed sellers.
Yeah. So just to recap, so basically you set up with 100 grand basically to start with. It's going to be the target, right? So with 100,
well, we've got two options.
We've
got two options. Either we start with we find 70 grand more and start with 100 and go down the commercial finance route. Which would mean 20% or 80-20. Or if we don't find that money, the 70 grand, then it's a question of me, well, either way, it's a question of me finding a property that we all collectively like and think there's opportunities there. But the other route is literally tying up with getting a property, getting it to the point that it looks good, we like it, the numbers stack up really well, and then going to an angel investor and saying, look, we can shove perhaps 30 grand into this, you shove 470, or it might be none and 500 grand, if that makes sense. So Yeah, that's that. I think that at the moment there are 2 options.
Which one of these is more feasible, or do you think that it's going to be more doable in the short term? I think that the 100 grand is going to be more like the best option down the road. What do you
Well,
think?
if we had this conversation a week ago when Chris was saying I'm somewhere between 50 and 100, I'd have said, well, you know, we're there at 100 grand. So, you know, the simple fact is I don't know. Funnily enough, I had a couple of other people inquire today, which is sort of a hangover from the thing that I did at the London Investor Show. You know, they may be interested. So I don't know where I'm going to be in a week's time. I just think the most sensible use of my time, and I'm in a reasonably okay situation where shortly my company, Face Up TV, that I last did a job on the 28th of February filming the London Investor Show, that will I'll probably be doing that 2 days a month from now on, you know, come the new year. That will help tick over. My outgoings are relatively modest. You know, I don't have a mortgage to pay anymore. So in a way, I have a massive amount of time to get the opportunities, and I just think once we've identified the opportunities, I think things will open up from then on.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
I think the money. I think that definitely money will flow as long as you identify a good deal. I no doubt that I no question that once you get a good deal, money will arrive. It's gonna be certain. It has to be if it is a good deal. I don't think that it will be a problem to get a money.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if someone's
Elizabeth, you got me, and also I will basically push because it's of my interest, my best interest, to make sure that the projects go ahead. So we'll have to push to the same direction to complete the fundraising. This is essential, but we need a good deal. We need a good assets to initiate a conversation with other potential investors to come with us.
Yeah.
That's the key. The key part here is that one, where you are basically your 30% that you are taking on the projects on the company is basically the compensation for doing the origination, finding the deal, and handle all this, structuring the transactions, handling all the things with your local authorities, the permits, and doing the planning.
I should really have gone for 40%, shouldn't I?
I tell you what. I mean, when you speak with investors, they are very tough. They say, okay, I put all of the money, I get 90%. That's my experience. They said, I'm raising funds for a mining company. Yeah, I got a mining company that I just looking at the institutional said to me, I put all the money and you are the management team and basically you get 10%, but once I get my money back. And you did all the offers. I mean, all the effort on sourcing, identifying deals, negotiating, all the things and then the investors are very rough and they said to you, you know what? Yeah, thank you very much, but I'm risking my money. It's very tough. Very tough.
I think that basically there's always a balance, isn't there? You know, I'm going to be working my butt off doing this day in, day out. Obviously, I have to have an incentive. You also have to have an incentive. You know, what's in it for you? What's the likely return back? Once you've factored in, you know, things that could go wrong and all the rest of it and so on. So I think that balance is probably there. You know, 30-70. Bear in mind, Elizabeth, we may have to think if someone comes over, it may have to be in a different joint venture partnership or something that we do the deal in, if that makes sense. If someone comes along with 470 grand for a 500 grand project, then you know, we might have to think about how we structure it. But you know, that's how we are.
Yeah.
I know, I got it. Understand.
Now you mentioned, I haven't put the names of the people you've mentioned, you've got involved into hand, but you've got somebody who is a builder who would be project managing.
Yeah.
Or able to project manage. Have they got connections in our area, or they would be relying on building up connections in our area?
The short answer is no. He's based in London. That's what, you know, I've known him for 30 or 35 years or something. And he's been literally, since I've ever known him, he's been doing things like that we're doing at the, or planning to do. So he knows exactly. And his role, as I've said to Chris, is I need you. I can do all the hard work, but I need you to basically grill the builders. So you know exactly whether they're talking bollocks or they're the real McCoy, and so on. And you then manage those people. Now, he's not going to be there on site all the time because he's got other stuff going on in London. But he will manage it, I think, as much as anyone probably will be. Bear in mind, I'm also going to be there with Chris's comments in my mobile phone. You know, has he done this? Have you done this?
He'll give you
I haven't done this, or whatever. So I've it's a long time ago now, but I did a big refurb of a house in Fulham and spent 6 months of my life literally being there at 7:30 in the morning, meeting all the builders and all the tradesmen. I don't want to do that now because it's important to have a builder that's responsible for the whole project. So I'm going to be making sure that he's doing it. We're going to do a fixed price on a project, but
a turnkey agreement.
Yeah, absolutely.
A turnkey agreement.
Yeah. So you know, I've started looking at various builders around Oxfordshire and just looking at their website and all the rest of it. But really, until we have a very good idea as to where the first project is
and the timescale.
I'm just, you know, if I phoned up a builder and started asking them questions, the chances are they're probably on a job right now, and you know, it's pure speculation. So I'd rather absolutely max out all that work when the time is right.
Are you thinking
if you speak to any of them, sorry, Elizabeth, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm sort of thinking about it while we talk. My next door neighbour is I'm not entirely sure. I think he is currently mostly working as a quantity surveyor, but he has a building company and you know is got experience in that sort of thing. I've not known him for more than a couple of years, and we don't know him hugely well, but I've watched the interesting project they've done in their back garden and sorting out a house that had a few problems. So, you know, we've potentially got other people I can talk to if
I mean, a example is surveyors or architects. You know, like any part of the world, there are loads of architects around. You just go onto the RIBA website and put in your postcode, and then up pops a load, and you can then look at their work and all the rest of it. But it's a little bit like, you know, deciding on a taxi 2 months before you actually want to hire the taxi. You know,
Mm.
you want to focus on that job at the time rather than 2
Yeah.
months beforehand, because they're probably busy delivering someone to somewhere else. So, you know, I know you're probably going to get good architects and bad architects and so on, but I think you can home in on that information at the time.
It's having an idea of what's your strategy to select somebody when
Yeah.
when we've got a project ready to say, right, actually we want to start doing the planning.
Yeah.
Do you, it's just on this point, it's good to ask them for record photos, videos of the previous work.
Absolutely.
I know some people, I know some constructors or builders that they basically use this 360 angle camera, and they basically record everything. So they have a complete, you know, beginning to an end video on what's the process, and film and photos of before, during, and after.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so totally in agreement with you, Johan. Yeah. I mean, that's just a question of, I mean, fortunately, most of that stuff's on their website. So I would see it for a builder's perspective. You know, you decide, right, okay, the job's happening in Abingdon or wherever. Let's choose builders at a 10 miles radius of Abingdon. Then you home in on them. And, you know, you get a bit of a beauty parade going on. You get them to come out. They talk about, you know, the project, what they can deliver. Can they do it on time? What's the potential snags that they see? And eventually, after you, and this is where Chris, I would expect, on one day when I've got a number of builders at a site, Chris can then say, right, okay, I think builder 1 and 2 are a bit crap, but number 3 is pretty good. And I like what he's saying. He's talking all the right stuff. And I think he can deliver. And I've looked at his website. I've perhaps chased up some testimonials or whatever to make sure it's something that we can work with. I mean, none of us want to get into bed with a fly-by-night builder. You know, disaster.
It's having the confidence that you are going to have a high chance of choosing a good set of people when it comes to that point.
Yeah. I mean, I've got loads of people lined up on planning. Funnily enough, I think as I spent 3 months reading all the planning, I think I'm pretty good on that. But we've got guys from Carter Jonas, very well-known agents. You know, he's apparently one of the top guys in Oxfordshire on permissive development rights. We've got a solicitor who's 2 miles away, runs an estate agency as well. So he's another sounding board. There's no lack of people that I've got lined up to give me advice and tell me, actually, you're going up the wrong street here for whatever reason, or you're seeing value in something where there is no value. So I've got all these people lined up, but some of these people, you know, all of these people sort of cost money. So until you have a job to give them, they're sort of, you know, it's a sort of funny situation.
Yeah.
I've
spoken to all of these people. We've exchanged emails and all the rest of it. They're all ready to go when a project is ready to go, really.
Yeah. You have the people line up, but they cannot do anything. They won't move any finger unless you have engagement letter with them, and then an agree fee for, especially lawyers. I mean, my lawyer is my friend. Yeah, fine, but you want me to do this? It's £1,000. Otherwise, it's my friend, but I mean, I got clients. I'm busy, so do you want me to read and prepare the contract and all this joint venture agreement, whatever? It's I need to put the money.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Carter Jonas guy said, look, I think I've given you enough advice so far. When you've got a project, it'll be about 1,200 quid. Okay, well, I'll come back to you when I perhaps have a project.
When you're ready to pay that.
Yeah.
Which, just to get my own head around how the costs work out, if you find a potential project, what things would you expect we're going to need to be paying for before we would actually finalise buying it?
An architect
Yep.
who's going to go in there and say, yeah, you know, we could do three 2-bedroom apartments here, or whatever it may be. Draw up the plans that will be integral as they're putting into the local council
Yep.
to have the change of use from office to residential. It would probably make sense. There's another planning guy who's a friend of a friend who I think will probably charge less than the Carter Jonas chap. He's willing to do the planning application. And so hopefully, you know, the council will look at that. It all looks great. That gets passed through permissive development and so on. You know, there's no problem with highways, contamination, acoustics, and the other one, and so on. They are the main things. Obviously, there's a solicitor when we buy a property to go with.
Yep.
Funnily enough, I was speaking to someone today talking about estate agent costs, which I have in the figures at 1%. So that's £7,000 if we're selling a £700,000, you know, mixture of properties. Well, this bloke said, you know, for 96 quid, you could stick it on Rightmove. Everything's on Rightmove anyway. Why pay?
Yeah, but that's on exiting.
Yeah, that's on exiting. I know. I
want to know the
Jumping ahead.
previous cost. Yeah, the cost on
Yeah.
money that is need to be committed before we close up. The money that is needed for take us to the final line.
Okay. Once a company gets up and running, accountant, but that's going to only cost a small amount, probably 100 quid a month.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know,
50
once we
or
started,
20.
that would be, yeah. I need to also have a very good chat about the, there's a couple of things about relief that you can get when you're buying capital allowances. When you buy a property, it comes with capital allowances, and you can offset that to things like VAT and all sorts of things. My regular bookkeeper, it's beyond her pay grade, so she's coming back with a couple of people that would be appropriate for that. That conversation might cost 500 quid.
Yeah.
But it will give me a very good idea as to what I can do, what we can do. Do you offset? I mean, arguably, you could say you only buy property, commercial property, that is not VAT registered. And about 40% of commercial property isn't VAT registered. So, you know, you could go down that route, because otherwise you're paying 20% extra on completion, but you're then getting it back at your next VAT date. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the other thing is, if you are paying, if we were doing the refurb ourselves, then you could offset that VAT cost as well.